there as well. Some misconceptions about inflation. But what inflation is, what causes inflation is increasing the money supply. Very easy. So you have one banana valuable. You have 1,000 bananas, banana not that valuable, right? So if you're in an island full of monkeys and you have 10 monkeys and one banana, monkeys will do a lot to get that one banana because it's so valuable. But if you have 1,000 monkeys, but if you create, you dump the island with thousands of bananas, bananas not that valuable anymore. So it's basically what inflation is. So you have the government that's overspending with their welfare state, which they can't afford anymore. So it's going bankrupt. So what they do is they create debt. What that means is every time you print a dollar of debt is created. So they print money or take on debt to pay for something they can't afford, which is the welfare state, which is what the people voted for, right? With universal suffrage and democracy, right? And they have to do what the people want because they want to get reelected, right? So no one can actually do the right thing, which would be to cut spending and stop printing money, right? So anyways, when you have 1,000 units of something in circulation, now you increase that to 10,000 units. There you go, ta-da! That's inflation. So the value of one unit goes down tenfold in that example. That's it. That's what inflation is. There's some differences in what inflates what. So for example, doing quantitative easing inflates asset prices, right? Whereas showering people with money, like stimmy checks, like we saw in 2020, gives you overall inflation. So there's some differences, and also inflation goes through the supply chain. So you will see basic goods increasing in value first, and that effect will trickle down to the supply chain. So for example, what will inflate first is going to be like energy, right? Or commodities. That's why even before energy was the best performing sector in 2021, the line team, us and the other line members, we positioned ourselves into commodities, especially energy, because we knew it's going to be the first one that will increase in price. And ta-da, what happened? Energy was the biggest performer in 2021. So I've been talking about this for a long time, trying to wake you up for a long time now, right? So I've wrote a book, I've wrote an entire guide to teach you sector rotation and how this stuff works. And when you want to put it into practice, you can learn that together with other members on my newsletter. We talk about it every day. So, yeah. Why didn't you join yet? The business cycle is two things. So those are interest rates and inflation. So during a boom phase, right, when the cycle goes up, like a recovery phase, you have low inflation and low interest rates, which is why the tech sector performs really well, which is why speculative assets perform really well, because there's cheap money available, right? Lending money, getting credit is really cheap, interest rates are low, plus holding large amounts of cash is not a problem because inflation is low too. So what that will do is increase inflation, right? Because you have fewer goods being chased by more people, or by more money, right? That's available. So the inflation, so asset price will go up. And as inflation reaches its top part, the Fed steps in and says, hey, we have to do something about this. That's the boom phase. And how you get into a recession is when the Fed increases interest rates. So the goal here is to, right? So the Fed increases interest rates, And that will lower inflation. And then you will be at the bottom of the cycle, like that depression phase. Like after recession, you're in the depression phase where you have inflation which is going down and interest rates at the highest rate. And then you go back into the boom phase, right? Into recovery phase, when the Fed's like, okay, we're done. Inflation is down to normal levels. We can decrease interest rates again, and the cycle begins from the beginning, right? My book's on Amazon, yes. So yeah, but there's one problem. When you're in the recession phase, right? The thing is, you have to increase interest rates above the inflation rate, right? Right. So if you have, let's say I give you $100, I lent you $100 for 1% interest. So 1 year passes, and you give me back $101, right? So I made $1. But what happens if we have 2% inflation? What all that means is, so I lent you $100 again for 1% interest, but the inflation is 2%. So what happens? The year passes, and you give me back $101. But the inflation is 2%. That means $101 is 2% less valuable than it was when I lent you the money. So I actually got money back, which is worth less. So it still made sense for you to borrow that money because it's free money. You get it for 1%. The difference is 1% cheaper. You give me back money that's 1% less valuable. Therefore, if you want to encourage saving over spending, you have to increase the interest rate above the inflation rate. And that's the whole point. And that's also why the government wants to cause inflation. Because what is debt? What is debt paid with? Debt is paid with interest. But what if the inflation is above that interest that's being paid? That means you're printing yourself out of the debt. You're inflating away the debt that you're holding. So the government, which the Fed is, by the way, the Fed is the government. It's not an entity. A private entity doesn't borrow you money for 0% interest. Right? So the government needs you, sir and madam, to think that they're fighting inflation while actually causing inflation, but not too much inflation, just enough to keep spending more money than they actually have on the stuff that you voted for. So the system is fucked. So, yeah. Look, if you want to learn this, okay, I put together an entire guide, the sector rotation guide. Link in my bio.